Hi everybody, this is Karen Andrews, and today I have got a bit of a Christmas treat for everybody in that I have my good friend and blogging compatriot Kelly Exeter joining me all the way from Perth. So that's very exciting, and she's going to be kindly offered to talk to me today about her book, Your Best Year Yet. And I asked if she would join me because if you're like me, and every parent's probably falling into this trap at the moment, you're a bit overwhelmed with Christmas and end of year turmoil or tiredness. And I thought that Kelly would be a good person to talk to in terms of maybe giving you some ideas to tackle those feelings, because the subtitle is to shift your thinking and take charge of your life. So as a lot of us look forward to 2015, that's very relevant as well. So today I'll introduce Kelly first. If you want to say hello. Hello. Kelly is I find very similar to me in that she's a mother, she's a runner, she's a business owner, she pretty much a superwoman in my opinion, and she is also my blog designer, so that's extra yay for that because it does beautiful work. And so I wanted to talk about three main things today. So because from your book there's three areas that I know I need to work on myself, and I've been trying to this year, and that's time management. So I was just wondering if you could explain to us the if I had more time game that you used to play with yourself and how you have turned around your pattern of thinking about that.
Okay, well, I think I first played that If Only I Had More Time game when I was a triathlete. So I managed to, I was competing at quite a high level with triathlons, but also working full time. And it was a bit of a source of frustration to me that most of the people, or not most, but a lot of the people I was competing against weren't working full time. And I, would get a bit grumpy about the fact that they could fit more training in or they could fit more recovery in and blah, blah, and I could only ever train in the morning or the afternoon after, before and after work. Um, Ultimately, I had to get my head around that, and the way that I did was just by making sure that I got the most out of each and every training session, basically. Um, and that worked really well for me. I mean, it was never perfect, and I still kind of found myself hankering for that little bit more time. But ultimately, it did work, and it showed me that you don't have to have a lot of time, and when you do have a lot of time, and I know this is particularly true for me, you waste a lot of time. So what I found it did is it made sure I just stopped wasting time, and I made the most of every minute that I had. So that was when I was doing triathlon. When I became a mum, I wasn't doing triathlon anymore, but I still had, lots of goals and, things that I wanted to tick, boxes that I wanted to tick. But, still have the same time problem because, suddenly you've got kids, you've got a lot less time on your hands. Go through that stage. Um, and so all of a sudden you now have to start prioritizing. But how on earth do you prioritize? And if you're like me, like if I see something worth going after, I want to go after it. I don't want to die wondering. But obviously you can't go after everything that presents itself to you. So how do you prioritize? Well, what I had to do, I had a bit of an epiphany a few years ago because, I was kind of chasing everything that, all the bright shining objects, I went chasing after them. And I realized after listening to a podcast that I didn't really know what I wanted to be doing with my days.
Yeah.
And because I didn't know what I wanted to be doing with my days, I was waiting for something to present itself to me. And that's why I just kind of did everything that presented itself, because I thought, okay, one of these things is eventually going to put its hand up and say, it's me, it's me. Whereas actually I had to figure it out for myself. So I soon figured out that what I actually really want to be doing is sitting at my desk writing or designing, um, and all the other stuff that looked good wasn't really me, and that's not what I wanted to be doing. So once I knew what it was I wanted to spend my day doing, then all those things that looked cool and looked fun, and certainly, you were asking me, try your hand at me, try your hand at me, and I was like, yeah, sounds great. I was able to go, okay, that does sound great, but it's not taking you where you want to be. It's not taking you towards, how you want to spend your day. So yes, it sounds fantastic. It's a great opportunity. It might be a fun person to work with, but it's not taking you closer to that goal. So you have to say no. And it's
Yeah,
really hard
it
to do
is.
that.
And I think
Yeah,
that's a part of getting older as well. I mean, I like doing a lot of things myself, and I dabble in different forms of writing, for example, and I know that when I'm either blogging or if I'm writing a freelance article, or, I could count off things on my hand. When I'm doing one of them, I sometimes think, oh, why aren't I doing the other four things? And I think
yeah,
when you're a little bit younger or you're still finding your way as a writer, this kind of muddling through phase is important. And I don't
mm,
think I would stress to people who are starting out writing to not stress about this too much. If you think, oh,
yeah,
isn't, if I'm just, am I just wasting my time? It's just like, no, you need to know, you need to develop your skills for a start, and then sort of really discover, well, where your strengths lie and and they don't lie, and then we can get to this point where you've just described, as just to go, okay, we've just, now things are a bit more crystallized.
yeah. And I
So
also find with that is, unfortunately, sometimes, or fortunately, you have to try things to find out that they're not really you, or that they're
yeah,
not what you want to do. So there's a lot of things that I used to think, yeah, I totally want to be all that, into that. And then I do it and I go, oh, actually, this is a really bad energy thing for me, or it's a really, you know, like for instance, consulting one on one with people was something that I was pushed to a lot because people said, oh, you're really good at it and you've got great empathy and, all that stuff. And I was like, well, okay, well, maybe I should do more of that. There's good money in it, da da da. But I would do it and I would be so exhausted at the end of each session.
mm-hmm.
And in the end, it just, and there are other frustrations that go with consulting in that, you give people advice and then they don't follow it and stuff like that. And I just like, in the end, it just wasn't a great thing for me to be doing, no matter how good I was at it. But the good thing was that I had given it a go. It wasn't like I went, oh no, that's not for me, I'm not going to do it. I gave it a go. I realized it wasn't for me. And then so next time people asked me to do it, I could be rock solid in saying,
Yeah.
no, I don't do this anymore. And this is why, Not that you should have to ever always say, this is why. What's the thing? It's
Okay.
don't complain and don't explain. That's something I'm still learning.
No. So what would your one time management tip be before we move on? Just to have the to-do list, or just, if you do have a to-do list, make sure it only has very actionable, relevant things on it, because that's what I do these days. If
Yeah.
if it's too vague, or if it's too long, then it's there's no point doing it, because I just feel even more sickened by what's to do.
Yeah. I would say for my top time management tip is to make sure there's time in your day for contingencies, because we all build, even if we build a realistic to-do list, we're building that list based on the fact that we're not going to get an email that we have to spend half an hour replying to, or we're not going to get a random phone call from someone that 20 minutes is gone and bang, that's our whole schedule gone. So when you're building your to-do list, just be realistic, and being realistic is acknowledging that every single day will have an hour to two of contingency stuff in it, and it's just what happens.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
yeah,
excellent. So the next one is, that I liked in the book, was you're challenging your bad habits.
yeah,
And you wrote about how to switch your mindset to that a bit. It's just like, it's not about removing something bad so much as replacing it with something better. And
yeah,
that's what I've been trying to do this year in terms of improving my diet somewhat.
yeah,
And it's And I thought, well, when you deny yourself, I mean, I've had an eating
Yeah,
disorder in the past. Like, I know that you can get into a very downward spiral if you start using negative
yeah,
language. So that's why the spin, I think, is really important for people, just to
yeah,
replace things and then just, yeah, so I just thought if you could sort of talk about that a little bit.
yeah. But it's just, yeah, it's such a tiny little mindset shift, but it's so, so important and so effective. And it's just, like, we do spend a lot of time getting down on ourselves for our bad habits or the things we don't like. And we spend a lot of time trying to break those bad habits. And habits are formed over a really long period of time. And they're actually really hard to break because there are
Mm.
so many external cues that trigger off those habits. And so, as you said, and as I mentioned in the book, that a much more effective way to approach it is to replace it with something else rather than trying to just eliminate it. And the food one is a great one that I find. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Um, yeah, the food one is a big one because when we're trying to change our diet for the better, we all spend a lot. It's very easy to get caught up in what we can't eat anymore. I can't have that sliced apple pie, and I can't have that glass of Coke. And as you say, it leads to those feelings of deprivation. And as soon as feelings of deprivation lead to resentment, and bang, any willpower that you had around that is gone.
Yep.
So the whole focusing on what you can have as opposed to what you can't have, I find far more effective. And that's what I really like about a lot of the programs that are out these days, like Sarah Wilson's I Quit Sugar, and even Michelle Bridges' 12-week body, which even though there's Sarah's program doesn't involve calorie restriction because I think calorie restriction is another problem with managing your food and trying to break a bad food habit. Michelle's does, but what both of them do is they both provide recipes and like really tasty recipes of really nourishing food that you can that so they're going, don't worry about what you can't eat. Here's this really delicious, beautiful food that you can eat. And I think that's why those programs are so effective, is that they're not just saying cut this out or don't do this and don't do that. They're saying don't worry about the stuff you can't do. Here's the stuff that you can do, and that and we're giving you the tools to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my major thing with the Breaking Bad habits is absolutely shifting your focus away from the deprivation and the, oh, I can't have this and I can't have that, and focusing instead on what you can have. And there's so much that you can have and do.
Yeah, that's very good. So I like that a lot. And then with the third thing I liked in the book, which is a subject that's close to my heart, is the facing the fears chapter in worrying about or not achieving our goals because we might be worried about judgment or yeah, judgment basically from your
Yeah,
peers. And I liked that. Well, I think that people sometimes want to don't come out and be public with their goals, either on their
yeah,
blogs or if they're bloggers or if they're not even on social media because yeah of that fear. And for me, that isn't an issue because sometimes when people are doing things that are very significant to them, it's done in a private way. Like if they're
yeah,
applying for a job or if they're applying for a grant or something like that, that's they keep it to themselves and then talk about it afterwards. But
yeah,
sometimes with bloggers, like they and with writers, they are a bit more public in that their aspirations,
yeah,
and that can be come back and bite some people sometimes if
yeah.
you have naysayers. So just how do you sort of wade into that area with when it comes to disclosing what your plans are, or if you hold back a little bit, like what do you do?
I mean, I don't put everything out there, but I do put a lot out there, and I think it's because I don't have a fear of failure. I have no idea why. I don't know where that confidence comes from. Maybe it's because the only thing I can think of is when we were younger. All our parents wanted to know was that we gave it a shot,
Yeah.
and that's all they ever expected of us. Anything extra was great. Actually achieving your goals, that's great, but as long as you tried really hard. And so that's what I've brought to adulthood, and so that's why gets me in trouble because because I have no fear of failure, I'll try my hand at every and anything.
Yeah.
Um, but to me it's a ticking something off the list thing, and I mentioned it before. It's, you try something, it didn't work, great. I
Yeah.
know that doesn't work. I don't have to worry about that, and I can tick that one off the list and set that aside, and I don't have to. But it's definitely it's a no regrets, never die wondering type
Yeah.
thing. Okay, I'm not saying be silly about it. I'm not saying put your family at risk or your house at risk, but don't.
I mean, it's
I,
better. It's better that you know than you don't know. I think. I think that
yeah,
just
well,
this because I mean, for example, I once began to do put plans in effect for doing another book, and I was open and I was public about that, and I opened it up for submissions, and then I decided no, that wasn't actually the right project for me at the time, and I shut it down. And a lot of people emailed me, well, some people had actually submitted work and saying, oh, why isn't
yeah,
it going ahead now? And I said, oh, it's just not the right time. And they were a little bit, isn't that embarrassing? And I go, well, no, it's not really, because I've just
no,
made the right decision for me.
yeah,
And then I think everyone's forgotten about it now, so it's all fine. And now I've brought it up
yeah.
again.
I
So,
think see the people that get it, they get it, and they just and they're very accepting of it. And I think people really love to hear other people go, you know what, I gave this a go, or I started this thing and then realized, oh, it wasn't the right thing to be doing at that time, and I pulled back. And I love when people put that out there, because I think it's so empowering for everyone else, because the more that everyone is trying stuff without fear of judgment and without worrying, I know it's easy and glib to say we shouldn't care what other people think, because
yeah,
I'd be lying if I said I didn't care what other people thought. But I do have to make a conscious decision to go, you know what? It really doesn't matter what those people think.
yeah,
And the way that I break it down into is, if I can't stop thinking about something, I must give it a go. And if and when you're giving something a go, you don't have unlimited resources. You have a very finite, whether it's time, money, energy, family support, whatever. But within the constraints of the resources that you have at your disposal at that point in time, give that thing your very best shot. If it comes off, it comes off, and if not, you go, well, I gave it, at least I gave it a go, because I can't bear the thought of lying on my deathbed going, I wish I gave that thing a go.
yeah.
I regret holding back on that dream of mine or that thing I wanted to do. So, everything's within reason, but my personality cannot cope with that. So that easily overrides the fear for me.
Yeah, same.
And yeah, and I just think if everyone took that approach of there's no such thing as failure, we're only ever experiences and learning,
Hmm.
then gosh, imagine the stuff we would achieve.
I know, and even that in itself is an enriching, thing,
Yeah.
and then you're so much wiser that you can then, you learn from that and then do better in the future.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
all.
we don't learn from the stuff that goes right. Let's be honest. I mean, I know that I know this from my triathlon days. The races that went really well, I learned nothing. I would
Yeah,
know that there were things not done. I might not have executed something particularly well, but hey, I might have won, and I've gone, well, I'm not going to analyze this performance too deeply, because hey, I won. What's to
yeah,
It's the ones that don't go well, that they're the ones that you actually draw something from. And if you're never ever failing, I would hazard a guess that you're probably never learning.
exactly. That's an excellent point. And
Big
if I,
call.
I want people to take something away with them for the coming year, then that's definitely you don't learn for the things that go right. And so I think that's been some great tips that you've given us today, and certainly consolidates everything that I've read in your book. So before I leave you today, I was just wondering if you could share with us what you're reading at the moment, because I always like to snoop and find out what people are reading. What's on their bedside tables?
Yeah. All right. So I'm reading two books at the moment. I don't know when I started doing this whole reading multiple books at one time thing, but yeah, that's what I'm. So I'm reading Brene Brown's The Gift of Imperfection. So a
Wow.
friend sent that to me. I'm surprised I've not really read Brene Brown till now, but obviously I'm reading Gifts of Imperfection and it's not my book, but I'm wanting to highlight like every second sentence. So I'm having to then scribble notes next to my bed.
Yeah.
And the other book is a fiction book. And if anyone out there has not read Patrick Rothfuss, Rothfuss yet, you must. He's a fantasy writer, so if you're into fantasy, you know, he's a beautiful, amazing writer. And yes, I'm reading The Slow Regard of Silent Things at the moment, which is
Yeah, that rings a bell.
a novella. So he's written the first two books of a trilogy, and of course everyone's waiting for the third madly. So he's put this novella out, and yes, but again, it's just beautiful writing that kind of makes you want to cry and kind of makes you think I have to give up writing because I'll never be this good. But
Yes.
but you kind of get over that and just appreciate the beautiful writing and hope that some of that comes.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna definitely want to
Just
track it
you
down.
do.
Yeah. And Brene Brown's always amazing. Like you read her TED Talks, and I'm sure she writes half as well as she speaks, and
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
it's just insight after insight, and you're just like, oh my God, yes, oh yes, and yeah, like I said, I just want to highlight. I'm gonna have to get my own copy so I can go through and mark it up.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you for that. And so before we leave everybody, I just want to show your wonderful book one more time, Your Best Year Yet. And it is available through your website and on Amazon as well. If
Yeah.
people went
If you
Googling.
go to my website and go to the book link, it's got all the various options there. So that's probably the best place to go.
Okay. And your website is kellyexeter.com. Is that right?
.au.
Dot
Yeah.
.au. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
.com will get them there, but .com.au is the official site.
Oh, okay, excellent. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, and yeah, and I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I'll see everybody soon. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks for having me.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye.